Welcome back to the EFA Podcast. I'm Drew. I'm here with Matthias.
Hello?
So pretty much the regular season for the NFL ended 2 days ago at the day of recording this. So we're going to pretty much just review kind of like the retirements and firings that have happened so far. Just to start out. But literally probably like 5 minutes ago, Devontae Smith won the Heisman, which is the best college football player in like right now. So yeah, I mean, to me it was pretty expected. That was my Heisman candidate, but I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of crazy because, I mean, in the beginning of the year, Jalen Waddle was their leading guy. He was the guy who was doing what Smith is now. So, I mean, I think it's insane that he had that season, but you just kind of wonder what he would have done if he was the number one guy the whole year.
Yeah, that would have been that. Like, there wouldn't be like. There's really no debate right now. There was really no debate, but like there definitely would have been no debate after if he was the number one guy that entire season.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk more about the college football and the playoffs in a second, like probably later on in the podcast. But we're gonna start off with the retirements, and there were really only two notable ones. With the first one being Matt Schaub, who finished his career with a 64.2% completion percentage, 25,000 yards, 136 touchdowns, and 89.5 passer rating. And he was more primarily a backup guy. He wasn't anything special. Like, I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But, I mean, I think it was like a 16-year career. So, those are good numbers for a backup quarterback, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Matt Schaub, to be honest. But, yeah, I mean, props to him for having an NFL career. And, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then there's the actual, the breaking news one, which was Larry Fitzgerald, who retired kind of shockingly. Like, it was kind of shockingly early. I figured if he were to retire, it would have been probably like early, like later in the offseason rather than like hours after his last game. But he finished his career with 1,432 receptions, 17,000 yards, and 121 touchdowns. And like, there was no Super Bowl in that career, but I think without a doubt that's a Hall of Fame career, and he's really been one of the best to ever do it. I think he had an insane streak of catches without a drop. I think I don't know what the amount of games was like off the top of my head, but it was a long streak, and I think it's the longest streak in the NFL. So he had a great career, and I think he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. And I think it's 5 years is the limit to when like you have to be retired for 5 years.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he's a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the better wide receivers of all time. Obviously, it's a shame he didn't get that Super Bowl, but I don't think he needs it, and I think that he's also he's always seemed like just such a likable dude,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, obviously he showed like amazing loyalty to the Cardinals for his whole career, and he wasted like a lot of it on teams that were not good, just straight up, I guess. But yeah, I mean, definitely Hall of Fame, and yeah, I mean, congratulations.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're good with the retirements there. Those are the only really two notable ones. I know there's been talks of guys like Drew Brees and Frank Gore retiring, but they haven't happened yet. So we'll keep an eye on that, I guess. But there was three firings, at least three in particular. Like, I think we should talk about, and that was Adam Gase with the Jets, Doug Marrone with the Jaguars, and Anthony Lynn with the Chargers. So if you want to start out with one of those guys.
So I'm gonna start with Anthony Lynn. Um, I think that really it comes down to the fact that the Chargers have been so bad lately in close games. I think that they need someone to be able to when they're because roster wise, since Justin Herbert was amazing his rookie year. Next year, if you just look at the roster, they should probably be in the playoffs. But I think that they need the right play caller to help them down the stretch, and that just wasn't going to be Anthony Lynn. I don't think he's a horrible coach. I just don't think he's the guy that when you have Super Bowl aspirations, you stick with. I think that this is going to be a really attractive head coach spot and in LA, and I think that it's they're probably going to be able to hire someone who's pretty high end, and yeah, I mean we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think Anthony Lynn, like you kind of said it all with him. Like not a bad coach, but he's not a good coach. I just think like he's not like you said, he's not the guy that's going to be, oh, we want to win a Super Bowl, so let's bring this guy in. But he is a good, I guess, bridge coach, if that's even really a thing. But I have heard that guys like, or just not guys like, it was like I've heard Urban Meyer has he's been thought of as being brought in for that spot. But yeah, it should be if they can get the right guy, then LA should be in the playoffs next year. And like Urban Meyer probably going to end up in Jacksonville, which is probably another great spot if you're looking for a head coaching job. But I don't know. There's a lot of great defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators out there that could fit really well in LA. So
yeah, I agree. And then for Adam Gase, I think that he was probably never really given a chance to win. He didn't. I feel like they realized they had a bad enough roster that they wanted to go for Trevor Lawrence this year. And then he heard about his job being in jeopardy, and he was like, I need to win a few, and then got fired anyway. But I think that, I think he deserves to go to another team and be some kind of. I don't think he deserves another head coach job, but I think, like some kind of coordinator. I think that, no one would have done well with this roster. You could have Bill Belichick could have had this roster, and they're winning 2 or 3 more games, which is still a very bad team. But I think that he again, not a super fair chance, but it makes sense he was fired. They were the worst team this year, probably. Jacksonville kept it close with a couple good teams, so I'd say.
yeah, I definitely agree that that Gase is probably that the Jets are probably the worst team in the league. I think Gase definitely deserves another shot as an offensive or defensive coordinator, whatever he decides he wants to be. But honestly, I don't really know. I've heard talks that he might go to Bama under Saban. Saban's looked at him. I don't know. I did like the point, he's not, they didn't really give him a chance to win, but he's not a good coach either. So I don't know. I feel like I think he kind of saw something, like we mentioned in past episodes. I think he saw something in Sam Darnold and decided, maybe I can save my job. Maybe this can work. Maybe I can come back. Maybe I can help build Sam Darnold to be the best he can be next season. Then he ended up getting fired anyway.
Yeah. And then if we're going to talk about Doug Marone last, again, he was not, you know, this year, obviously, it's another thing where the roster, there's just not enough talent to be a winning team. But I also think that they need a new culture in Jacksonville. Obviously, they're going to have Trevor Lawrence. They're in the midst of a rebuild that I'd say looks like it's going pretty well so far. And I just feel like they need to bring in that guy who, maybe he's like a little bit younger and he can help, provide a culture for all the young guys to follow. Like, I think a good example is Doug McDermott in Buffalo. But yeah, I think that it was the right choice, and I think that Doug Marone is just again, he seems like a very very average head coach. Like, he's not gonna do you anything fantastic, but he's probably also not, like, if he had an okay roster, he's probably not the next coach to lead an 0-16 team. But
Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about like Doug Marone, and again, like all three of these guys are not really like great coaches, but I don't think they're terrible coaches. Adam Gase is the only guy that kind of crosses that line for me. Like, and that's not even by that much. But Doug Marone, he did lead this team to an AFC championship. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and they lost by 4 points, I believe, to New England. So they were 4 points away from one Stephon Gilmore. If he'd missed that ball, they're in the Super Bowl. But yeah, another guy is not terrible, but they need to bring in somebody like Urban Meyer, who's probably the most likely guy here. And I feel like with Trevor Lawrence I feel like maybe this team can be back in the playoffs as like a 7 or 6 seed, not like a 2 seed as they were 2 or 3 years ago. But I do wanna talk about the Jaguars and like what they're gonna do in the draft and everything that's happening, and we'll probably do that in a video instead of a podcast later on, so either this week or next week. So yeah, with that, unless Matisse, you have anything to say, we can move on.
yeah, I'm all good.
All right, so I before we move into the top three players, I want to talk about the Miami Buffalo game. And this game was the reason I want to talk about this is because this was the game that this is what shook up the entire playoff race. Like, Miami won, Indianapolis wouldn't have been here, and they lost. So, and if Indy lost, then Miami would have been there. So there was a whole lot of possibility, or not really a whole lot, but there's those two possibilities that came out of this game. And Miami ended up getting absolutely demolished by Buffalo, 56-26, which is, if you're a Buffalo fan, that's huge. If you go into the playoffs looking like that's going to be scary for teams to play against. But on Miami's side, I know Mark has talked about it, I've talked about it, you've talked about it. I'm pretty sure Hayden's probably talked about it on the podcast as well. But like, Miami's, they're a good team. Like, they're a dark horse. Like, next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they win the AFC East. And like, even Buffalo's looked really good, so that is gonna be another one, another like good AFC East matchup next year between those two.
Yeah, obviously it's not a great way to end the season for Miami. They're looking like a pretty great playoff team. And one thing I kind of want to touch on is I've seen people say, Miami has a top 3 pick. Why don't they just get a QB? Because Tua hasn't looked fantastic. And I really think that's incredibly stupid and unfair, because I think, it's bias from just lately. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert were two of probably the best rookie QBs ever, I'd say. Justin Herbert was probably the best rookie QB of all time. And I just think it's unfair because, naturally he's getting compared to those guys a little bit. He didn't have as much to work with from a receiver front as them. And I think obviously he he played. None of his stats were fantastic, but he was a very safe QB who did not throw a ton of picks. Obviously, besides the last game, but he kind of reminded me a little bit of a young Drew Brees, like a tiny bit. But yeah, I think that's ridiculous, and I think that they should more look towards surrounding him on the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're gonna draft a QB, like either don't draft one at all or draft one in the seventh round who can be a backup. Because unless they resign Fitzpatrick, Fitzpatrick's gone in free agency. So I think I think it's stupid to draft a quarterback in the first round, let alone even at all. But um, like he was just kind of thrown in there, right? Like there was no, oh, so you're gonna like you're gonna play the fourth quarter. Or you're gonna play the second half of these games. Like they just kind of threw him in there, and like he did well his first two games. I think he lost his first game and won his second, and he looked really good in his second game. And then we just kind of got shown that Brian Flores didn't trust him. Like when they needed a win, they just benched him. They put in Fitzpatrick. So like for example, like the game, like the Vegas game, like that's really the first one that comes to my head is like I think they were up by like 4 or 5 or something, and in the fourth quarter, and they benched him for Fitzpatrick. So they just need, if they want him to succeed, they need to show him that he can be trusted. And I don't know, they didn't do a very good job of that this year. So hopefully Brian Flores can do something with that next year. So all right, so Matthias, if you want to start off with top three, this is our last top three of the year, I think, unless we can figure out something to do for the playoffs. But I think we're gonna end the top three with week 17, if that's all right with you, Matthias.
Yeah, all right. Well, my three is Tom Brady. He had 399 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I think you said the past couple times he's turning on playoff Tom Brady. He's starting to get in gear. They've looked the offense has looked much better lately. Hopefully Mike Evans is healthy for the playoffs, but after the insane game Tom Brady had in week 16, I believe, where he threw 4 touchdowns, I think, in the first half and then got benched because they were so far ahead. Um, yeah, I mean, he's just been amazing lately, and he's way better, I feel like, than he was in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, like you said, playoff Brady is back. But I'm gonna go the other direction. My number three is Marvin Jones, who had eight catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And like it's kind of late. It's week 17, and you're what like 5-11, 4-12. But it was great performance. Like if you can put up 150 yards, then that's in itself is a great performance. Let alone 180 plus 2 touchdowns. Now, granted, Minnesota's defense or at least secondary, is weak, but yeah, he played very, very well. So that's why I have him at 3.
Yeah.
All right, so my 2, and once again, I think it really goes without saying, there are 2 guys that were like both of them could be number 1, but I am gonna put Derrick Henry at 2, and once again, always in at least one of our top 3s or top 5 or whatever we do. He ran the ball 34 times, had 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he eclipsed 2,000 yards on the season, which I think he's only the 8th running back ever to do it. So I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I mean, he's Derrick Henry. He's without a doubt the best running back in the league. So
Yeah. My two's Marvin Jones. I'm starting to think maybe I forgot about someone, but you mentioned 8 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's really been the guy with Kenny Galladay being out for most of the year, who Matt Stafford can trust the most. I I think he's been underrated for most of his career. Uh, but yeah, it's a great performance. Again, kind of a useless performance, or like it has no meaning because they're not pushing for playoffs or anything like that. But yeah, great stat line.
yeah, if you can do one as well if you want.
Yeah, and then my one is Derrick Henry, who I have 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. Who had 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he eclipsed 2,000 yards, and I think it's just crazy. He eclipsed 2,000 yards and is, like technically, I guess, sort of, he's probably in most people's top three MVP candidates. But uh, the fact that he's not really a real contender for the award, I feel like that's just crazy that a running back can have 2,000 yards and not be a candidate. I think it shows that like how insane of a year a non-quarterback has to have to be in the MVP contention. I think Aaron Rodgers deserves it, obviously, but he's just had an insane year. Probably one of the most dominant we've ever seen from a running back. And yeah, I mean, another guy who's kind of just activated playoff mode, and it'll be interesting to see what he does with Baltimore this week.
Yeah, like you mentioned, definitely 100% deserves to be in the MVP race, and definitely like should it. I don't know. Like I don't think it should be hard because the MVP is definitely a quarterback favored, and it has been for years. But um, and we'll probably do award predictions either in the next 2 or 3 weeks before they happen. So we can talk about that again whenever. So, but we're my one, and you definitely did forget about someone. But Jonathan Taylor had 30 rushes, 253 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I like again. Taylor and Henry they were so close. I wanted to put Henry at one because he eclipsed the 2,000 yard mark, but Jonathan Taylor had 3 more yards, and I just felt like I can't just put him below Derrick Henry, who had, because it's pretty much the exact same stat line, just Taylor had more yards than Henry, so that's why I have him at one. But we talked about this Sunday night. I thought for sure you'd have him in there.
Yeah, I guess I just forgot, but obviously it's an insane game. I think with Clyde Edwards and Antonio Gibson having a lot of time off, like the time off for injuries, and yeah, I think that him and James Robinson are definitely those top two rookie running backs of the year. And, I think with this performance, he might even get one on a lot of people's lists. Um, yeah, I think that, the Colts really realized what they had, I guess, in the second half of the season, and they just kind of let him run wild. Uh, and he was my favorite running back of the class last year, so I'm glad to see that happen. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what kind of career he has.
Yeah, my favorite running back out of the class last year was probably J.K. Dobbins. I mean, Ohio State fan, so I mean, I can't really shy away from him. But I guess since we're on the college topic, let's just go over the Natty now instead of later. But so, um, Alabama beat Notre Dame last Friday, and Ohio State beat Clemson last last Friday. So the Ohio State and Bama will face each other in the College Football Playoff National Championship on Monday, January 11th. It could get pushed back. I know Ohio State's had some COVID troubles, and there's been some talk that it could get pushed back. But I'm just gonna start real quick. I'm gonna say, like, I have to pick Ohio State. Like, I picked them last week, and they were very good, and I just can't pick against them now. Like, I can't pick Bama to win, but Alabama's a great team. Like we mentioned, Devonta Smith he won Heisman, probably had one of the best college football receiver seasons of all time, and he's definitely cemented himself as wide receiver 1. And yeah, so it's gonna be a very good game, but I think it's gonna be very close. But I have to pick Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an insane offensive game. Like, Waddle's back for Alabama, and Justin Fields looks like he really wants this. So I wouldn't be surprised if both teams have more than 40 points. But I in the end have to pick Alabama just because obviously Nick Saban, and like I said, Waddle is back. Ohio State has a weakness, I'd say, with their corners, and really, I mean, if Jalen Waddle comes back in like the form he was at the beginning of the season, which I guess you can't really expect with the time he's had off, but him and Devonta Smith, that is probably like the two best college receivers that we've like the two best college receiver seasons that we've ever seen, like, on the same team. And I think that you can't ask anyone to cover that, and Mac Jones will just be able to facilitate and throw them the ball on every play, basically, and Alabama's offense will be almost unstoppable, is what I'm thinking. So that's why I have Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, like, I think it could really go either way, but, like, I have to pick Ohio State. But I think if Justin Fields has the game he had against Clemson, I think they could win this game. And if Sean Wade and Sevin Banks and guys like that can shut down Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, if he plays, I don't think he's actually back yet, but I think there's a chance he could come back. I don't know but anyway, yeah, I think it is going to be a very good game. And like you mentioned Jalen Waddle. I do love Jalen Waddle. In my preseason scouting, he was my number 1 wide receiver for the year. So anyway, now we move on to more NFL, and we got playoffs finally, which is very exciting. Patriots aren't in it this year, so I guess I'll root for the Seahawks with you, Matthias. But,
yay!
But we're gonna start off with Indianapolis and Buffalo, and I don't know. This could really go either way. I think Buffalo's gonna take it though, because Buffalo's just looked insane. Like they've looked like one of the best, if not the best team in the AFC and maybe even the league. So Indianapolis is just not that. I don't think they're gonna compete. There's a chance they do compete and make it a tough game for them to win, and maybe even gives Buffalo a concern for whoever they play, whether it's Cleveland or Pittsburgh. But it should be a very good game, and I don't really think any of these games are like gonna be insane blowouts. I think they'll all be within 2 scores, and I think it should be a fun weekend.
Yeah, I think this is actually a fairly easy pick for the Bills. I think that the Colts they're kind of one-dimensional right now, with Jonathan Taylor being, kind of carrying the offense a little bit, and Phillip Rivers, I don't he's never been great at winning playoff games before, and now he's worse than he was then. And the Bills are just a great team. I think that, they're going to have to pull something that, we haven't really seen this season from them to win. And I trust their defense, but I think the offense just needs some kind of other dimension to them to win this game.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on. We got the Rams and the Seahawks, and I have to take Seattle just because if Jared Goff comes back, I don't know. I don't know how good he's gonna be. Like I don't know how good that thumb's gonna be. I don't know if he's gonna be able to throw the ball as well as he has been. And he kind of struggled after he dislocated the thumb. Like he went back in and kind of struggled for the rest of the game against Seattle 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I have to. I'm gonna take Seattle here because it's the exact same scenario as it was 2 weeks ago in Seattle. On a 4 o'clock game, like same time. So yeah, I'm gonna take Seattle. I think Seattle's gonna be able to get it done this week.
Yeah, normally I like to go the pessimistic route just so I'm not super, discouraged. But I'm gonna pick Seattle. I think that, you know, if thank you. If Jared Goff is back, um, he's probably not in 100% form, and if he isn't, obviously, like that's a whole nother issue for the Rams. I think that the Rams defense will keep this a close game. So, but I still trust that you know um, Russell Wilson will be able to hopefully turn on some kind of playoff gear, and the Seahawks defense will be able to hold a um, backup quarterback to a pretty low scoring game for the Rams.
Yeah, and maybe I would pick the Rams if they won against Kyler Murray, but the backup quarterback for the Cardinals came in the first quarter, and Murray didn't really play much. So yeah, I mean I'm gonna stick with Seattle. I'm not gonna change. But moving on, we got Tampa Bay and Washington. I'm gonna pick for Mark here because I know Mark's gonna pick Washington. Most likely. I mean, he could surprise all of us and pick Tampa Bay, but Mark's probably gonna have Washington. I have Tampa Bay. I just think we mentioned Brady. He's in playoff form. I don't think he's gonna let anything get in his way, and certainly not Washington. I know Chase Young has been very good and is probably Defensive Player of the Year, and he wants Tom Brady, as we've seen in those videos we saw from after that game, Chase Young going in the locker room. But I don't think I don't think Young's going to be able to get to him a lot, considering Tampa Bay's O line is pretty decent. But I don't know. Washington could pull something out of their ass and win this game, but I got to stick with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Washington's defense, I think, is caliber enough to win this game, but their offense, they don't really have a playoff worthy QB or really just generally a playoff worthy offense at all besides Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson, who I don't even know if he's playing. But one thing that'll be interesting to watch is the rookie matchup of Chase Young and Tristan Wirfs. That'll be cool to see who ends up, dominating the other one, or an average game. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Bucks, in a game that I don't think should be amazingly close. I don't think it'll be exactly a blowout, but I think it'll be a win by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, I think you really touched on anything, but yeah, I know I said that there's not gonna really be any blowouts this week, but this is if I were to pick one, this would probably be it. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can do your game. You can do your games now.
So next we have what I think will be the game of the week in the Ravens and Titans. Obviously, we saw this matchup last year, and Derrick Henry ran all over the Ravens. I think that he probably is going to run all over him still, and uh, the Ravens' defense has really just kind of gotten worse and worse as the year has gone on. Obviously, it's probably still top like 8 or 9 or around there, but no one can stop Derrick Henry when he's in playoff mode and he wants the game, obviously. But I actually have the Ravens winning. I think that they've quietly have a 5 game win streak. Um, I think that Lamar obviously knows his narrative right now. He can't win playoff games, and I think obviously as a young QB, you want to get that monkey off your back. You want to win. You want to win,
Yeah.
and I think that just to
Keep going. Keep
show
going.
that just to show that like his style can win, I feel like he needs and probably really wants to go out there and win this game. And yeah, I honestly, if I had to predict one player to just go off this week, it'd be Lamar. A mix with just the narrative and the Titans' absolutely horrible pass defense. So
Yeah. Honestly, I thought you were gonna pick Tennessee there, and I want to pick Tennessee. They're my second favorite team. That's who I'm rooting for this year in the playoffs because New England's in that year. But I also have to go Baltimore because to me, I know I mentioned the Bills and them looking like one of the best teams. I think the Ravens have looked like one of the best teams in the league ever since Lamar came out of the bathroom against Cleveland on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I agree. I think Lamar's going to have some kind of spark and he's going to go off this week. And he is going to want to get this first win. He's going to want to get that, oh, Lamar can't win playoff games. He's going to get that thing off his he's going to want to get that thing off his back, and I think he's going to be able to do it this week. As much as I hate to say it, but I think Baltimore's going to be able to win this one.
yeah, but whatever happens, I think it's going to be a great, probably pretty high scoring game.
Yeah.
But next we have the Bears Saints. And, I think that this is another game that should be a fairly easy pick. The Bears really picked it up at the end of the year. Their offense looked a lot better, but, they're going into New Orleans. And Drew Brees had a couple pretty good games to end the season off. And I just think that, barring what always happens to the Saints in the playoffs, some kind of crazy, ref call or like missed push off or something. I think that the Saints will win this and move on to the divisional.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I definitely agree with everything you just said. We saw this matchup already, and New Orleans won. I think it was in overtime, but it was still, it was a good game then. I think it'll be a good game now because, like you mentioned, Chicago's really picked it up. But again, the defensive they've played have been very poor in the games they've won, and I think the highest defense they've played was like 27th or 29th or something. And when they played an actual defense in Green Bay, they kind of just got shut down. So New Orleans is another very real defense. So I just think New Orleans is going to be able to get it done. Chicago, as good as they've looked the past few weeks, I think they get it done. But New Orleans always seems to go out in some weird way, and Chicago could be that weird way this year.
Yeah, but last we have Browns versus Steelers. I gotta pick the Steelers just because it was a pretty close game without Big Ben. You add Big Ben in, and I think that I think that the Steelers win. Obviously, not as much as they did the earlier on in the season when the Steelers just completely blew out the Browns. But I think that it'll be a good game. But I think that seniority will just win out, and Roethlisberger, having more playoff experience, will be able to outperform Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Wow. This was a very boring session of picks because we both had the same picks for every game, but except for the college football championship. So I mean, there's that. But I have Pittsburgh as well. I think I agree with the seniority thing. Baker Mayfield's looked really good. I really do want the Browns to win this game because I do not like the Steelers, and I can hear Mark agreeing with me right now. But I don't know. I just feel like Pitt, they kind of turned things around, at least with the win over the Colts 2 weeks ago, and the loss last week shouldn't be a deciding factor in this game, considering they weren't starting Ben Roethlisberger and a few other starters, and they Browns barely beat them. Like it was 2 points, I'm pretty sure. So I have to go Pittsburgh. As much as I hate to say it, I think we're gonna see a Pittsburgh Buffalo rematch in the divisional round.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but also it'll just be interesting to see how Baker does in his first playoff game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Browns, that was the longest. They ended the longest drought for the playoffs this year. So I don't know. I really want to see Cleveland make a run. I really want to see Tennessee make a run. Like Washington would be fun to see, but you never know. It's the playoffs. Anything could happen. For all we know, the Colts could win the Super Bowl. But all right, so we're gonna move on to questions. Before one of us does it, Mark has sent in a question for us to answer. He wants to know if the Washington football team has a chance at winning the Super Bowl at all.
All right, I guess I'll go first, and I'm gonna go with no. I think that would be probably the worst QB to ever, like in recent memory, to win a Super Bowl. Like obviously, I guess Nick Foles a couple years back, he was not fantastic, but I mean, he was playing really well then. But I think that Alex Smith, all the credit to him for coming back from that injury. But, I just don't think that – I don't think really anyone can thrive in the offense that they have. And I think that it'd be such a gigantic shock to me if they ended up even making it past the Bucks. I just don't think that they can go on from there and win.
Yeah, like you mentioned the Alex Smith injury. Like, what a comeback story that would be if he came back from that injury and ended up winning the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like, that would be one of the greatest stories to ever. Like, not just the NFL, sports, like, in history, like, ever. That would just be insane. But no, I don't think it's gonna happen. They're a very fun team to watch, especially coming out of the NFC East. But yeah, I really just can't see it happening. So I'm sure Mark is sitting there believing that Washington can do it, but I can't see it happening. So yeah. All right. Now that Mark's asked his question, I'll start off with my first question is, how far do you think the Browns can make it? Like, do you think they have a shot at the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game?
I honestly feel like the ceiling for them is beating the Steelers. I could definitely see that happening. I think that they do have a chance at beating the Steelers. But I also, I don't think it's the most likely thing. And they play Kansas City if they win, correct?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think it's an actual bracket now, so they don't play. The Kansas City doesn't play the lowest seed. They play the winner of Baltimore, Tennessee. I would have to fact check myself on that, but I honestly don't know. For now, let's just assume that they play Kansas City because that's how it usually is.
So yeah, I mean, if they somehow make it past the Steelers, they're playing the Chiefs, and I don't think that is like remotely possible for them to win. It'd be so crazy to see them win that game. Obviously, it'd be like shocking and exciting and amazing for Brown fans. But I mean, like, if you know a Browns fan, let them gloat right now. You know, they made the playoffs. They've sucked for so long. I just think, they deserve this, but I don't think they're going to get that far.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say the ceiling is definitely divisional round, and I don't expect them to beat Pittsburgh, but I can definitely see it happening. But yeah, I don't think they can get it past Kansas City. And if we are wrong and they don't play Kansas City and it is like a bracket and they end up playing Buffalo, I don't think they can beat Buffalo either.
Yeah. Well, my first question is, what is your favorite player team fit of the top prospects for the upcoming draft? I just thought that it was time for a draft question because all the all the teams who didn't make the playoff seasons are over, and now it's time for them to look forward to the draft.
Oh God, that you're putting me on the spot there. Like that's a question I need to really think about, and I'm not gonna take the easy way out and say Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars. uh, I have to say, like the one I've most commonly seen right now is Kyle Pitts to the Patriots. I think it makes a lot of sense. They need a tight end / wide receiver who he can really play both. He reminds me of Chase Claypool, in that sense where he can play tight end. Like I think Claypool was a tight end in college and transferred to wide receiver. But I've seen a lot of comparisons to Darren Waller, which is also another good comparison. I don't know. I just feel like whoever the quarterback is, if we can get like if we can get Kyle Trask in the third or fourth round, like that would be the dream because then we have the Kyle Pitts from Florida, or sorry, Kyle Trask from Florida throwing to Kyle Pitts from Florida. But at that point, if you're taking a fourth round quarterback, like why not just start Stidham at that point? So I don't know. I because I'd have to think about that and like actually go through and not just off the top of my head. I'm just gonna go with what I've seen the most and what I like, and I'm gonna have to say Kyle Pitts to New England.
I just want to say for the comparisons you said, just to bring it back into focus, or bring down the hype just a tiny bit for him. He reminds me more of Evan Ingram with a much better at blocking than Evan Ingram is. But yeah, I don't love comparing to people like Darren Waller, who's like a Pro Bowl, probably this year All-Pro guy. I think it's just not fair to put that kind of expectation. But mine, again, for me, it's kind of the easy way out. If I want to take the easy way out, I said Penei Sewell to the Bengals. I've just loved that for so long, but I'm not going to do that. I started to really like Jamar Chase to the Eagles. I think that they're in the range where they could take him. They need a wide receiver, and I think that just he would fit so perfectly. Jalen Reagor, it'd be great for Jalen Reagor because they're two very different but key types of wide receivers for an offense. I think that just those two guys together provide just like a whole nother dimension to an offense, and I think that that'd be a great way to start off building that offense around Hurts. And that has definitely been the fit that lately I've just been liking it.
Yeah, to me though, if you're at 6, right, and the assume there's no trade backs, or assume there is trade backs. Sorry, Jacksonville's probably gonna take a quarterback. New York, if they don't trade back, they'll probably take Justin Fields if he has another great game against Bama. Dolphins will probably take Sewell. I don't really know what the Falcons and Bengals would do at that point. Like, would they take Devontae Smith there? I don't think they really need a wide receiver. So if you're sitting at 6, why not take Devontae Smith if he's still on the board? I do like what you're saying with Jamar Chase. I did agree with everything you said, but I don't know. I don't know. They did it last year. They took Rager over Justin Jefferson, and I know I've gloated it to you and Hayden all the time, but Justin Jefferson was my number one receiver coming out of last year's draft, and he's certainly proved to be that. But I don't know. Like, this could be Jamar Chase could be the Justin Jefferson of this year and kind of prove everyone wrong. So I don't know. If I'm the Eagles, I'd pick Devontae Smith, but I do like the fit with Chase and Philly.
Yeah. I don't want to get too sucked into draft talk, but my number one right now is actually probably Waddle, but I don't think that I think him, and if you're still expecting something out of Rager like a breakout season, I don't think that works very well next to each other. They're very similar kinds of wide receivers, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should get too sucked into the draft talk because I know we could definitely talk about it all day. And once the season's over, we'll have some draft. We'll definitely have some draft episodes. So, all right. So my question, and I'm kind of debating I have two questions. I don't know which one I should ask, but I'm gonna go with this one. Who are the Jaguars? If you're a head coach, and you're looking, or if you're a coach and you're looking for a head coaching spot, are the Jaguars the best spot?
So I'd say no, just because I think that, it's I'd say the Chargers are an amazing spot, and then the Jaguars are a really, really good spot. But I'd just say the Chargers are a little bit better just because they have Herbert. He's already proved himself. Lawrence is amazing, but there's really no such thing as like a prospect that will 100% be like fantastic or like great. And I just think that they have a little bit longer to go on a rebuild towards being a playoff team than the Chargers do. And I think that the Chargers, they could be there, like I said, with the right head coach next year. I think that it's just a more kind of cushy, like the system's already set up place to go.
Yeah. Okay, so that does make sense, and I will agree with you on that. Like I mentioned before, like earlier, we will have a YouTube video where you can only watch it on YouTube. We'll have a video talking about. We'll probably do a Jaguars mock draft and just talk about what they can do in the offseason, who they can bring in if they haven't already brought in a head coach by the time it's uploaded. But, alright, so moving on, last segment. We got Super Bowl predictions, and it's going to be our last one of the season, except for obviously the conference championship week because we'll each have picks, which will give us a Super Bowl prediction. But our last real one when there's actually teams we can talk, like multiple teams we can talk about being there. So I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna take Kansas City, New Orleans, and I've finally stepped away from Pittsburgh. They've proved to me after they lost to Washington and Cincinnati in the span of 3 weeks. I just don't think they're gonna be able to make it past. I don't think they're gonna be able to make it past the divisional round. KC, New Orleans. Yeah, Chiefs have shown themselves to be the best team in the league. I know you've talked about they might have a few holes in the armor, as you said, and I definitely see that. But similar to Tom Brady, I think Patrick Mahomes has a different. He's a totally different player in the playoffs. New Orleans, I think it's Drew Brees' most likely his final season. I know he signed a broadcasting deal with NBC at some point in April. So it's probably going to be his last year, and I know he's going to want it. Everyone around him, Sean Payton, like they've been with him pretty much his entire career. They're going to want him to make the Super Bowl. They're going to do whatever they can to succeed. So, as cool as it would be to see Drew Brees go out as Super Bowl champion and cap off his Hall of Fame career, um, as a champion. I don't think he's going to be able to pull a Peyton Manning, and they're playing a lot better. They're playing a lot better team in Kansas City than Manning did in Carolina in 2015. So I don't know. I'm gonna take Mahomes. I think Mahomes is gonna ruin it, and it's gonna be a great game. Maybe Breeze comes back for another season and tries again, but I'm gonna take Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
So I'm actually starting to step off of the Chiefs. It's starting. Obviously, it might be a little bit fatigue for me because I've picked them for literally every Super Bowl matchup since like the season began. But I'm gonna go with the Bills. They've looked great lately. And my other team is the Packers, who I think have looked really great lately. I think that'd be a great matchup. I think that the Bills Chiefs in probably the conference in the conference finals would be a great game to watch. But they've had so many weirdly close games lately. The Chiefs is who I'm talking about at the moment, but they've had so many weirdly close games, and their defense doesn't look quite as good as last year. And Mitchell Schwartz is out. I don't know. It just seems like they're starting to crack a little bit, and someone in the playoffs is going to get them the break. I'm just guessing that's the Bills, but I think that the Bills had a fantastic season, but Aaron Rodgers has just been so great this year. I'm going to have to guess the Packers. And, obviously, he not retiring after the season, obviously, but he's starting to get a little older. He wants to get that other Super Bowl in to cement himself. I honestly think after this fantastic season, if he has a Super Bowl where he's the Super Bowl MVP, he enters that kind of top 5 QBs of all time, in my opinion. Like that discussion. I think just with his overall skill and him now, assuming he wins, having 2 Super Bowls. But I think that, Chiefs Packers or Bills Packers, or those would be my 2 guesses. But I think that it will be Bills, but I think that whoever they play, the Packers are going to end up winning.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that. And before we wrap it up, you talked about the Bills making the Super Bowl. I kind of want to ask one more question, and I want to know. Give me 2 teams from each conference that you want to see in the Super Bowl. Not that you think will be there, that you want to be in the Super Bowl. And you cannot pick the Seahawks in the NFC.
What the heck? Okay. Well, all right. So I always really like to see young QBs succeed. So from the AFC, I'm gonna have to go with the Bills and the Ravens. I think that it'd be fantastic for Lamar to get that. Oh, his style can't win playoff games, and it's completely different, and he can't win there. I think it'd be great for him to get that away from him. I think that the Bills would be another really fun team to watch make that run, and I think that they're actually fairly likely to make that run. I think they're the second best team in the AFC as we speak now, maybe even one. But for the NFC, it gets a little bit tougher for me. I would want to see the Saints because Drew Brees just kind of seems like, he seems like a guy that is just kind of a nice guy, Hall of Famer. He has like every record statistic in the books. But I think that, again, another guy, he enters like that top 3 QBs of all time with a Super Bowl win. And the second team for the NFC, I'd have to say the Buccaneers. I think that it'd just be kind of crazy to see if Tom Brady wins another Super Bowl. He will have more Super Bowls than any team does. So that'd just be ridiculous to see. But also at the same time, very, wonderful, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. So I agree with pretty much everything you said except the Ravens because I don't know. There's something about like I do love Lamar Jackson. It's just I can't stand Harbaugh, and so I can't root for the Ravens really. But my two in the AFC would be the Bills and Titans. Obviously, Titans are. I guess that's kind of cheating because I took away the Seahawks from you, right?
Yeah.
So all right, so I'll go Browns because the Browns have been very fun to watch with Baker Mayfield, he's insanely energetic as you've seen. Like he has some insane celebrations at the end of that game, like stuff that is how do you have the energy to do that after playing 60-minute football game? But
Yeah.
yeah, so that would just be really fun to see him in the Super Bowl. And like with the Bills, like as much as I hate to say it, being a division rival fan, they've been insanely fun to watch. Like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, the run game, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Um, like, and they're funny too. You've seen I bet you've seen those videos of them like having a snowball fight at practice and
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs flossing on the sideline last week. Like they're hilarious to watch, and so that would be really fun to see in the Super Bowl. And if I had to move to the NFC side, I agree with the Saints. I think it would be really cool to see Drew Brees go out on top. But I'm gonna take the Washington football team because that would be absolutely hilarious
Yeah.
to see a 7-9 team in the Super Bowl. And I'd have to agree with the Bucks because I've been saying it ever since Brady won that sixth Super Bowl in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018 or it was the 2018-19 season. I think it would be incredible to see Tom Brady Tom Brady have more Super Bowls than any other team ever, and like that would be just great because that's like the guy I grew up watching, right? Like he was my quarterback for God like literally all my life, like 17 years. I don't have the jersey up right now, but that would be insane. So I do agree with the Tampa Bay pick there.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that about wraps it up. Unless you have anything else to say.
I'm all good.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get that YouTube video out again about the Jaguars next week, or at least by next week. I want to start doing some draft prospect reviews, like probably later on in this, like after the season's over. We can get Hayden on for those. I think that's it. So yeah. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the EFA Podcast on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at EFA Pod. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we will see you guys, or we'll talk to you guys next week for the divisional round matchups. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you and see ya.